Perfect. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us either live or in the replay. We definitely appreciate it. As always, Jessica Hayes here with the Lockbox Advantage and the lovely and wonderful Miss Amanda Camacho. Thanks for joining me, my friend. Today, we are here to chat about perfecting your listing presentation and pitch. And this is going to be a really, really, really big deal as we continue to go into the market. We all know that inventory is tight right now. There's a huge demand, there's a low supply, and he who controls the listing inventory is going to do really, really well. So we want to do our part to help you succeed. And we're going to start off by sharing all of the standards that we've used to help us be really successful. So I want to start out with the listing appointment confirmation conversation. And this is a step that I think gets missed way too often. People get so excited about their listing appointment, they book the appointment, they show up to the appointment, and they had no idea that the homeowners added a fifth bedroom or another bathroom or installed a pool, and their comps are complete trash because they didn't have a proper confirmation conversation. So let's chat about that, Miss Amanda. I'm going to go ahead and just run through our basics, the highlights here. I think the most important piece of this is in this very first section. Hey, this is blank with blank, just confirming our appointment at blank at this location at this time. Is that still a good time for all decision makers to be present? Mm-hmm. I feel like we have this happen where people get really excited to book the appointment and they don't confirm that all decision makers are going to be present. And what happens when you have, one sibling on board, but the other sibling wants to use their friend who's also an agent? You've done nothing for yourself. So it's really, really important that you confirm everybody who has decision-making power in this process is going to be present at that appointment with you. And I want to just bring up a conversation that's not really related to the guide. And Amanda, you and I have talked about this extensively recently. Where do you want to fall in the order of interviews if you know you're in competition? Mm-hmm. Right? For me, I like being first, and I like making sure there is no second, third, fourth, or fifth. But I mean, that's a personal decision. So how do you feel about that? Why don't you tell the people?
So I guess I personally, I do like to be first. I like to be leading the expectations. Mm-hmm. And however, it's not that I would require it. I mean, right. If I can choose, I'd love to be first. However, I also don't mind them interviewing everyone and then me coming in and them just blowing it out of the water as well, which also makes it very easy to sign because it is very rare that people do push the signatures. Now, there are some behaviors where it could just be their personality that they stick to their commitments, and it's not sure. Who they are to cancel on people. If that is just who they are, and I know no matter what that they're going to have these appointments, then, maybe I'll want to be last.
Sure.
Or in the middle somewhere.
I mean, the truth is it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
If you're doing the best job, you're going to win the appointment. I like to go first because I feel like that gives me the greatest advantage, right? So when I go first and I set the stage for what the expectations should be, and I have that seller looking at me like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for in a listing agent. Well, for me, great. Then why don't we go ahead and get started today? And when that seller says, oh, I have to interview X, Y, and Z, hey, that's not a problem. I really appreciate that you want to honor those commitments. Now, as we've discussed, I know time is of the essence for you. And it's really important to me that I be able to stick to the timeline that we've built here today. If it would be easier for you, I can reach out to those X, Y, and Z agents to let them know that you've decided to move forward with me and to give them the first opportunity to bring a buyer. Mm-hmm. And You'd be shocked at how many times I've sat down with the seller and the seller is like, oh, actually, yeah, that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great. Thanks so much. And it's hard to make that Dear John call sometimes, but that's your first act of service for that seller. They sign with you, you're acting with agency to find them a buyer. If those agents have buyers, you've got to find them and you got to play nice in the sandbox, right? So I like going first, but I am one of those agents who will push for the signature on the spot. It usually goes well for me. All right, I'm going to go back to our guide here for the listing appointment confirmation conversation. I'm not going to read this line by line. This document is going to be made available to everybody who registered, so don't fret, my friends. But basically, you want to go through the standard LP Mama conversation on the house to confirm that you know exactly what their expectations are. So let's confirm the location and stats of the house. Now, the tax records say that your home has 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Is that accurate? Sometimes the tax records are not correct. Sometimes the square footage is totally wrong. Sometimes, like I said, they've added a bedroom or they've added a bathroom. When that happens, it's really important that you be the agent who finds out before you walk in, for the purpose of having comps here. Oh, it looks like it missed a comment, sorry. Can you repeat the part of what you offer to the seller after you cancel the future listing agent appointments? Oh, literally, Darlene, we just offer to make that difficult phone call to cancel their appointment. It's to take that uncomfortable conversation off of the plate of the homeowner. Mm-hmm. And we do it in as nice of a way as possible, in a professional a way as possible. So it's just, hey, if it would make things easier on you so that we can get started as soon as possible and we can make this timeline that we've built together today, I'll go ahead and give those other agents a call. I'll let them know that you've decided to get this ball rolling, and I will give them the first opportunity to bring a buyer for your home. So we're kind of wrapping it up into a bow. Let's see here. Yes. So it is our first act of service for the seller. That's exactly right, Angie. So the minute we sign agency, that can be our first thing that we're doing for them. Okay, so going back to our guide here, and I'm sorry I'm looking left just because this is where the guide is in my world. It really is just important that we confirm every single detail. So the details of the home, the price is really important. Have you thought about a price that you would sell your home for? Do we know what their expectations are? And this is not necessarily going to influence what valuation you come up with, but it's going to be really helpful to you to know if you're walking in there as Santa Claus, giving them way more than they expected, or if you're the Grinch and you're nowhere near their expectations, because that's going to be a very different conversation. So find out what they're expecting, find out how they came up with that number. And if possible, ask them like, okay, and have you thought about how much you need to net in order to make that transition to your next home really smooth and simple? Mm-hmm. Find out what those numbers are, because it's going to be helpful to you, like I said, just to know whether this is an exciting conversation or a disappointing conversation, because you want to approach this in a way that they're going to receive it well. Next, motivation and timeline. That's going to be really important. Somebody that has 6 months to sell is going to get a totally different timeline than somebody who's got 30 days and they need to be on the market by tomorrow. And we can make either one of those things happen, but we want to make sure that the advice that we're giving is tailored to the needs that they have. So find out what their needs are. You can't have like a one-size-fits-all box that you put into every listing. You have to make sure that you're tailoring your approach to the needs of the client. Their mortgage, first we'll start with agents. Have you already decided that you're working with me, or will you be interviewing multiple agents? This is so important for you to know. Now, if they say, yeah, we're going to interview a few people, that's great. Can I ask who else you've committed to speak with? Find out who your competition is, right? Sometimes they won't tell you. But if they do, research them. Find out how you compare. Look at what their listings are presented like. Look at their performance statistics. Compare those statistics to your statistics. Walk into that appointment armed with knowledge to help your client make the best possible decision for them, which is obviously to choose you. Now, if they are interviewing multiple people, also ask the question, and have those interviews already begun, or will I be the first agent you're speaking to? Just get the information, because you want to be able, again, to walk in fully armed with all the information you need. Okay, now mortgage. Find out if they have a mortgage. If they have a mortgage, find out what the balance is. This is going to be important for you so that you can provide an accurate net sheet. So for all the agents that struggle with their commission conversation, and obviously this is a public setting, so we are not going to discuss specific percentages that we charge. That would not be appropriate. But we will say that whatever your fee is should be accounted for in the net sheet. When you get pushback from the seller on your commission, 99% of the time, it's because you didn't come with a net sheet and you didn't get them to commit to say, yes, that net number works for me. Once they've said that, they've agreed to your commission. If you don't have that information, all they're looking at is the amount of commission you're getting, and that feels like a lot of money to them. So you're setting yourself up for objections by not having this information up front. And again, lastly, confirm the appointment time. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Is there anything you would add to that, Amanda?
No, I like that you included the net. I talk about that quite a bit. You always bring the net that includes your commission, and you just present to them what their proceeds are going to be. And then the argument over your cost has already been established.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I like that you said you always bring it. I got a list of stuff that I say you always need to bring. So in my world, I'm going to send over a copy of my presentation before I walk in the door. And I'm going to do that so that that seller has an opportunity to review that in their own time. They get all the standard information, that the fluff stuff that I say to everybody. Because when I'm face to face with the seller, I want my conversation to be tailored around them and around their needs and around their home, not my standard spiel. I'm not into that. And most sellers are not either, by the way. Mm-hmm. And you can say that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to be shooting you over an email, or I'm going to be dropping off a package, or I overnighted you a box. It should arrive this afternoon. Whatever it is that you're going to send in whatever medium you're going to send it. Can you do me a favor and spend some time looking through the information that I'm sending? It's got a lot of details about how I work and the services that I provide. I want to make sure that you've got the full scope and the full detail of what it is we're going to be doing for you, so that I can address any specific questions you may have when we meet. And beyond that, we can tailor our conversation to you and your needs. If you explain why you're doing it, the seller is going to appreciate having that opportunity. So I highly recommend going that route. Even still, bring another physical printed copy of that presentation with you on the day of. You don't know if they spilled coffee on it, if they left it at the office, if they never actually even opened the box. And you don't want to put them in a position to be like, I've got it somewhere. Like instantly you've made them feel uncomfortable if you're counting on them to produce your presentation. So always have another copy. I like to bring what I call a listing launch calendar. And that's just a blank 60-day calendar with a list of things that I know I want to have happen before we go live. And I sit with the client and I say, okay, so in your ideal world, when are you going to be completely done and moving out of this house? And I get that date from them. And I put it at the very end of that calendar and I say, okay, so in order for us to do that, we need to be in escrow at least 21 days before that date. So let's find that date, boop, right there. Now we know the average days on market in your area is X. So that means we want to shoot to be live on the market by, boop, right here. Great, and in order for us to be prepared to hit the market by that date, We know that we need to have photos done by this date. Done. We know that we need to have staging done by this date. Okay, done. Now, in order for that to happen, we know, and you just go backwards, all the way backwards, and say that means that we need to get started no later than, boom. And almost always, it's pretty stinking close to the day you're sitting there, because very few homeowners realize the time that it takes to properly sell a home. I think that that's probably a message you should all be sharing with your people all the time. It takes longer than you think.
Yeah.
Can I sign a listing agreement and have it on the market by tomorrow? Yes, I can.
Mm-hmm.
Do I recommend that? No, absolutely not. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get the best possible service if you bind your agent by an impossible timeline. So if you can show them the value of your process and help them understand, yes, this takes time and this is why, your conversations are going to go a lot better. I like to do that with that calendar. I also like to have a listing info sheet, which is basically like a questionnaire, a seller questionnaire, especially for seller occupied homes. When would you like showings to take place? You know, if they have kids, they're probably not going to love the idea of needing to be out of their house with 1 hour's notice at any time. But if you can set rules and parameters and you can say, hey, I know that your kids are in school and you're at work Monday through Friday from this time to this time, that's great. Can you commit to me when you leave the house in the morning, it's going to be show ready? Yes, you can. Great. Or no, you can't. Okay, what days of the week can you make that commitment? Like really dial in your showing instructions so that you can make it easy for people to see the home in its best light without inconveniencing your seller any more than you have to. Your home buying plan, if they have a replacement property, you're going to need to know what it is they're looking for in their next property. Seller preparation checklist, you guys, this is so huge. Do you know how unfair it is for us to look at a homeowner and say, hey, make sure your house is show ready, without providing any guidance on what the heck that means? So you're going to want to have a full detailed list. And again, this is something we're going to share with everybody who registered for this thing. If you have not registered for the event and you want any of this content, shoot me an email or a DM. I'll make sure that you get it as well. It will be loaded into the Lockbox resource library probably by end of day tomorrow. So you can also find it there by end of day tomorrow. But I think, yes, you have to have that at the ready, or it's really just unfair. You're setting them up for failure at that point. Your list of interested buyers, if applicable. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but how powerful is it if you leverage this listing appointment, A, as lead gen, and B, as service? If you can shout out to the rooftops for your deal of the week, which is a Sharon Srivatsa idea, right? And I love Sharon. I think he's pretty stinking brilliant. But you've got this appointment. Now's the time for you to send out a blast to your database. Hey, I am aware of an off-market opportunity. It's a home in this neighborhood with this many bedrooms and this many bathrooms that the seller would like to move from in the next 60 to 90 days, whatever that timeline is. If you or someone you know is interested in a house like that, shoot me an email back. I'll work on getting you the full details. You're not sending pictures, you're not sharing the address, you're not committing to a price. You're just getting people to raise their hands. Same, reach out to your lending partners. Most people don't think about this, but reach out to your lending partners and say, hey, I have a listing appointment for a great 5-bedroom, 3-bath home in Highland Hills neighborhood. It's right by the park, backs up to the Greenway. I think we're going to list it somewhere between $650 and $675. How many fully approved buyers do you have in your database right now who you think wouldn't be interested in a house like that? We don't need names, right? Like, we don't need to know exactly who those people are. We just want a number. We just want to know how many buyers they're working with that fit that description. Now, when you are in the listing appointment, how powerful is it to say, well, I reached out to my personal network of home buyers and lending partners, and I can tell you that I can put you in direct contact with about 13 buyers who are potentially interested in purchasing your home before we've even hit the market. Print out the email from your lender that says, I'm working with 13 buyers who are fully approved at this purchase price and are actively looking for a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home, and I believe would love to be in this neighborhood. Do you know how freaking powerful that can be for a homeowner perspective to be like, dang, this person already got to work? It's one thing to promise you have a great network. It's a whole different thing to show up with results, right? Nobody cares about promises. They care about process and results. So yes, bring that if you can. And then 3 net sheets. I like to bring 3 net sheets because when you're doing your CMA, you're likely going to come up with a high, a standard, and a low number. For the best case scenario, if this house is rock star amazing, way better than anything else, it can go for up to this much. To, yeah, the average home is going for about this number. To, well, if it needs a bit of work and the seller's not willing to do that work before we hit the market, probably going to land right around here. Have all 3 net sheets available to you. Have the net sheets include that mortgage payoff. Have the net sheets include your preferred commission rate. Have the net sheets include your recommended co-op commission rate. Have the net sheets include any inspections that you want them to have done. If you're somebody who knows that you're going in and you're going to be recommending some basic repairs like painting or carpet shampooing or whatever, have a budget included in that net sheet so that you can show your client that you put thought into this and this is what they can expect to profit from the sale of their home. All of that goes into it, right? And Amanda, we talked about this too. I'd like to recommend you guys bringing what's called a menu of services. The truth of the matter is commission is the number one objection we get at the listing table. Right? You talk to the seller who says, all of this is great, but Joe Banana at ABC Real Estate said he would do all of this for a 1% listing fee or a $500 listing fee or whatever the number is that is lower than what you're willing to do it for. Instead of just saying, no, I don't work that way, or maybe you should go work with Joe Banana, you can say, hey, I completely understand that you want to make sure you're getting the best possible deal for the sale of your home. I actually have a menu of services here. And the package that I recommend for your home includes X, Y, Z, all the way down for all of the services that you're going to provide. Okay? Now, you'll notice this is not my highest package. We do have what we call the luxury package that includes that extra stuff that you could potentially offer, right? Are you going to offer weekly cleaning services before an open house to make sure they don't have to stress about that? Are you going to offer fresh flower delivery to make sure their home is always beautifully fragrant or whatever the case may be? There's extra things you can do. They're way above and beyond if you're charging a premium fee. If it makes sense in your return on investment, you can invest more in the listing. Now, if you prefer to forego some of these services in the package that I've recommended for you, I'm more than happy to adjust this service package to this down here. You'll notice that this particular service package doesn't include, and highlight it, doesn't include these things. And it's okay if you'd like to forego those items. I will tell you that I recommended this particular package because I do believe this is going to have the highest return on your investment. But ultimately, this is your sale, this is your decision, and I'm here to service you the way you'd like. So can you tell me what looks best for you? Now, all of a sudden, when they're looking at it, well, I don't want to have the lowest package.
Right.
And you can say, hey, that's all right. We can go back and commit to a package later. Let's keep talking about what this will look like as we go down the line.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the fact that we're afraid to have that conversation bites us in the butt. Having a menu of services makes that conversation very simple, right? Nobody goes up to the car wash and says, I'd like to get a deluxe car wash for the basic price. We're wired as Americans and homeowners to just understand more service, more price, less price, less service. And when you put it in a menu that way, you get a lot less pushback, a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
And it is going to be important, obviously, that you have a robust list, a comprehensive list of the services that you're providing. Okay, so 3 net sheets, menu of services, your listing agreement, and your seller disclosures. I'm a big believer that you sign that bad boy on the spot. The minute you have a seller that says, yes, I want to work with you, fantastic, here's what happens next. I've got some paperwork here that I like to go through for us to formalize that relationship. Do not assume that you've got it in the bag because they've verbally committed.
Mm-hmm.
Get it in writing. I think that's the biggest mistake that people make. Yeah. All right. And we've got some notes for success here. We've got scripts for the whole meeting. I am not going to read this whole thing because that would be terrible. I will, however, give you the gist in the intro, and it's really basic. It's like, hey, typically in these conversations, there's going to be about 4 things that every homeowner wants to make sure that we cover. Okay, so the first is what I'm going to do to market your home and ensure we expose it to the highest possible number of qualified buyers. The second is going to be your timeline to get on to your next adventure. The third is going to be how much your home is going to realistically sell for in today's market. And lastly, why I genuinely believe I'm the best person for the job. Now, beyond those 4 things, is there anything you want to be certain that we cover today? That's it. If you set the tone like that, most people are going to say, no, that's everything. If they say something else, great. I'm going to make sure we cover that in our conversation today. Write it down. Okay, now if you're not sure what you would say for one of those 4 things, don't stress about it. We've got the details of recommended scripts and pitches here. Again, just for the sake of time, nobody wants to hear me read this. I don't want to read this for you. That sounds awful. I do, however, want to go over a commission objection handlers. I feel like that's the piece that people struggle with most. So let's chat about that a little bit. Okay. So beyond the menu, if you're not somebody that has a menu of services that you could just point and say, hey, I completely understand if you're not interested at this level. Can I ask, what level are you comfortable with? That makes it much easier. Or, right, we've got some other options here. So can I assume you're asking me to reduce my fee because you want to ensure that you net the highest possible amount from this sale? Of course, we know that's why. We know that's why. If you have data where you can say, I completely understand, and if you see my personal performance, you're going to find that my average sale to list price ratio outperforms market averages by about 5%. So unless the competing agent is offering to pay you for the privilege of selling your home, I can assure you, you stand to net the most with me. Right? It's very rare that someone's going to be like, oh, well, that's all right. I'd rather go with somebody who doesn't net as much money for their sellers. You just want to help people understand that it's important they not step over dollars in order to pick up dimes. Mm-hmm. I think that tends to be, the most difficult, most dangerous thing because they see this one sticker price. Okay. Now, if you get all the way through the end of your presentation and someone says, well, before I sign, what's your fee? You go right back to that net sheet and you say, not to worry, my fee was actually accounted for in the net sheet here. And it's already been included in your seller costs with this net number that's going to work to get you onto your next adventure. I'm not a big believer in reducing my commission without also reducing my cost. And I think as business owners, we really have to come to a place where we look at every single listing as an investment. You pay a lot of money when you get a listing. You're paying for staging, you're paying for cleaning, you're paying for photography, for videography, for Matterport, for advertisements, for printing, for events. It is expensive to take a listing. I am not going to invest the same amount of money into a listing that is paying me half the commission that I expected. That's not a wise investment. So you have to be able to get really super comfortable with explaining that as a business owner, just from one capitalist to another, because I think we're too afraid to have discussions like that. Well, hey, I totally understand. If you'd like to reduce the amount of money you're paying, I can appreciate that. I do have other packages here with reduced services. Which one is most in line with your comfort level? But I prefer, right, to just have it in the net sheet and let them know, yes, this is the package I've recommended for your property. And again, never have it be the highest package. Let them see that you looked at their property and you decided what was most prudent and appropriate for their specific home. And they may ask you, hey, what's going on over here? What's that extra stuff on that next level? And then you can say, well, we do offer a luxury layover. It comes at a premium and it includes X, Y, Z, all the way down the list. But more than likely, these extra things that are included in that extra package are not going to be things that are going to necessarily sell the home. They're going to be convenience. They're going to be luxury. They're going to be, okay, well, you don't have to worry about cleaning the house before the open houses. We're going to make sure that we have fresh flowers placed, right? We're going to be sending a gardener over. You don't have to worry about making sure that that mulch looks good and the lawn is mowed perfectly. We're going to do all of those things for you. Oh, well, I don't need you to do that. Yeah, and I didn't think it was necessarily needed or appropriate for this particular sale, and that's why I didn't recommend that package. Oh, okay, I appreciate that. There's something to be said for demonstrating prudence up front. Would you agree with that, Amanda?
Yeah, definitely agree.
Now, is there anything that you would add? I know I talk a lot. I'm so sorry, you guys, but what would you add to this for our fellow agents?
The only thing I would really make sure to include is that if you know your seller is going to be purchasing another property, I would include their cost of making that purchase in their seller proceeds, because it really sucks when they expect this money and then they didn't really prepare for the buy side. Also, if I know that they're going to be especially having maybe some negotiations, maybe it's not a traditional sale for one reason or another, but for any reason, I always like to bring whatever your purchase agreement's going to look like. I like to write essentially what I feel based off of the LP Mama, their ideal offer is going to look. And so I bring that ideal offer from their, here's your ideal buyer buying your house, and here's what an offer based off of our conversation would look like. And here's what that net sheet would look like based off of this offer. So when we're getting offers in, they've already seen an RPA. They know how they want to negotiate against it. And when they're just getting offers and you guys haven't gone over the purchase agreement or how they can expect those terms to be so different across the board, depending on what buyer comes their way, they don't know how to read an offer. They just see the price that they're offering. But sometimes they don't really understand what that means to their net. They could accept an offer that maybe is a little bit less, but is willing to close in 10 days and gift them 29 days in the property at no cost to them, so they can write non-contingent. That means a lot. So it's not a good price. So I like to bring in, along with, if you could get the best offer for your situation, this is what it looks like on paper. So they already know what to expect. Other than that, I think it's pretty, right, solid, right on.
And I love that, right? Because we have this conversation with our buyer clients, and most sellers are also buyers. And it's so important to not skip out on your home buying consultation just because you did a seller consultation.
Get that buyer
Those are two
representation
different
agreement signed
separately.
The listing agreement. And just say, we need both of these agreements signed because I act for you in two different fiduciary ways. And this shows our representation together. Because how many times do we even have a seller who walks into an open house, walks into new construction, like they act like first-time buyers, and they, it happens. And a first-time seller needs just as much education as a first-time buyer.
100%.
We really can't skip over. We just take the listing a lot of times, and a lot of agents, they don't really reflect on. What really gets me too is when a listing agent, and I'm on the buy side, so it really doesn't matter much, but I just think of like, gosh, like how could you do that when they don't include the seller's contingency to find their replacement property, when I know that they're moving and I know that they need to sell the home in order to buy, and they don't have rental plans lined up, and I'm sending in an offer and I don't include it because I'm acting on behalf of my.
You don't want that.
Yeah. I don't want it. So I don't include it, but I expect it back. And when I don't get it back, I am like, I don't understand it. Your client more than likely is going to be finding a Airbnb or a rental. Or here's the thing is when I have my buyer, I always tell them how I expect to be countered on if I was the listing agent. So if I was representing the seller, this is what I would send back to us. And when they don't send it back, and this is how you remove all of the hurdles up front. So if I don't get an SPRP back in my counter, I tell my buyer, listen, they didn't negotiate it in right now. Let's not be surprised if 10 days from now,
it shows up later.
It shows up out of nowhere for a request. Let's not be surprised. And hey, between you and me, let's keep that in our back pocket to have some more negotiations for you if they request it later. So when they do request it later, because they do need it, my buyer's like, yes, now we have more negotiation power, and they don't think of it as a huge negative impact on their timeline. Like when you understand the
negotiation, because they were already expecting it.
You can learn it's chess. We're playing chess. We're not playing checkers. We want to be 10 steps ahead of the game, and we want to understand how we're going to negotiate when we probably expect it to go wrong. Like, don't hold back that information. And hey, if it never happens and everything happens just fine, who cares? But at least your clients are not operating blind.
Well, and I think you said what's most important here. You just have to keep your clients informed about all possible outcomes. Like, hey, this is what I'm expecting will likely happen. If that happens, here's what we'll do. And if it happens, I'm going to let you know. If it doesn't happen, this is how we'll play it out. Like, they just have to understand. It is not our job, in my opinion, to keep the client in the dark so that they don't stress. I think that provides a lot more anxiety for people because this is the largest financial transaction of their lives. And when they don't know what's going on, they stress about it. It's way different than if, hey, I have you. You are 100% okay. And here's what's happening. Here's how I'm handling it. Does that work for you? Mm-hmm. It makes people feel better. And Darlene, I see your question. So how often should you be communicating with your seller? I really like to set the expectation with my buyers and my sellers. Hey, just so you know, you're going to hear from me every single Friday about what has gone on in the week before in your file. Sometimes it's not going to have a whole lot of stuff in it. Sometimes we're going to be in a holding pattern. If for some reason something needs your immediate attention, if something has gone wrong, you're going to hear from me immediately. We're going to address that immediately. So just know if I'm reaching out to you on a Wednesday, it's because we're going to have to address something that Wednesday. If everything's going according to plan, you've got our calendar, you've got our plan, I'll check in with you on Friday just to let you know we're on track. I don't think it's wise for us to be calling every single day with every single update because they don't want to hear from you that much either, right? Like you're handling this transaction for them, handle it. They don't need to know you confirmed the photography for the time that you told them they would. Just that you already told them that was done, let it be done. They don't need to know that you've finished editing the photos, that you've finished designing the flyer, that you've finished. They don't need to know that as soon as it happens. What they need is on Friday, hey, as promised, this week, all of these things got done. Here's the things we're hoping to accomplish next week. If everything goes according to plan, you'll hear from me again next Friday. That's it. Also, that means when they hear from you on Wednesday, you're going to have their attention because they're going to know if you're calling midweek, it's important. There's something significant happening. And I feel like that's the best way to respect your seller's time and to set expectations for them respecting your time too. That matters, especially if you're going to be operating at a high volume. Okay. Oh, you know what? I'm going to completely backtrack because I did remember, and this is a question I've got quite a bit, but this question, this item number 4 in our listing presentation conversation, why I'm the absolute best person for this job. I think a lot of agents really struggle with their value proposition, which is unfortunate. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you mine. If you decide you want to borrow it and adopt it to your own business, you've got my permission. That's totally fine. So for me, if you are walking in there with a list of buyers, you know, if you've got your printed out emails from your lenders, I have 9 buyers that fit that criteria. I've got 6 buyers that fit that criteria. And you went ahead and ran your deal of the week and you've got 4 buyers that fit that criteria. You can say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I've actually already started working for you. In preparation for this appointment, in preparation for this meeting, I reached out to my personal network of buyers. I reached out to my preferred lending partners, and I found 19 interested persons in this property. So I'd like to show you, boom, here's this email, boom, here's this email, boom. Here's my summary of hand raisers.
Essentially, you're showing them a stack of possibilities versus a stack of offers in the beginning.
Right. I'm not showing you promises. I'm showing you possibilities. Mm-hmm. I'm not promising that I'm going to do a good job promoting your listing to my network. I've already done that, and I'm showing you my results.
You promote the appointment.
Mm-hmm. Promote the appointment. Now, once you've gone and showed them, these are the people that are interested, my intention, once we get started, is to leverage these 19 individuals to drive the price of your home as high as possible. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, when you hire me today, you're hiring me to perform 3 basic functions on your behalf. It's marketing, negotiation, and transaction management. Now, I've already started marketing, and you've seen my marketing plan for the rest of our relationship together. Is there anything that you feel could possibly be better about that plan? Let them tell you, no, it's flawless. Or if they say, I also want XYZ, well, it's good to know that now, right? So you know what? I'll make it happen for you. I agree, your home deserves the 5-star treatment. Write it down, add it to the process, put it on the calendar, okay? Now, in terms of negotiation, I like to let my performance speak for itself. So when you look at my list to sale price ratios, you're going to find that I outperform the market by X%. Now, conversely, when you look at my list to sell price ratios, when I'm representing a buyer, I underperform the market by X%. And you're going to find that that swing of whatever percentage that is, right? Do your own math. More than compensates you for my time and services.
It is really fun to pull up your numbers. When I did mine, I realized that I net my buyers on average, I think it was 3,500 in credits versus the average sale, which is, it's just good to know where you stand. You know,
always watch your numbers, right? Know how you're perform versus the market, versus your top competitors, your sale to list price ratio, your average dollar per square foot. Pay attention to your average days on market. Pay attention to your credits. Yeah, pay attention to all of the numbers so that you can speak intelligently about how your performances compares to your competition. It matters. And then lastly, when you hire me today, again, it's transaction management. I want you to understand that when you work with me, there will be no fewer than 3 sets of eyes reviewing every single document that you sign. And I operate that way because I want to make sure that all of our I's are dotted, all of our T's are crossed to ensure that your best interest is protected 100% of the way through this transaction. Is that the level of attention and care that you're looking for? They're not going to say no to that, right? And if you're wondering who those 3 sets of eyes are, they're yours, right? So your one set, you should be carefully reviewing every single document that you ask your client to sign. You should have a competent TC that is also carefully reviewing every single document you've asked your client to sign. And you should have a competent broker that you work with who has every intention and habit of carefully reviewing every document that you submit to have your client sign. You know, a lot of agents resent compliance review. I'm not one of those agents. I feel like you should lean into compliance review. You should leverage great compliance review as a strength as an agent. Hey, I'm partnered with a team that's going to be so laser focused on compliance that you are going to be 100% protected here. That matters.
I mean, when you're maneuvering everything correctly and you know you have basically a bigger sword to swing around, then it gives you a lot of negotiation power. And, you know, when you hear, I can tell when I'm negotiating with an agent who understands a contract and understands compliance. It's it's very straightforward. It's very clear. The expectations are well set. And that's when you can have the, you know, let's call their bluff, because I know that according to the file, this is what this looks like. So sure, let's see if they're going to do that. And that's when you can start having the confidence to make those decisions and know that you're going to have it work out in your client's favor.
And conversely, like I can tell when I'm working with an agent who doesn't know the contract. And I wipe the floor with those agents. I know it's terrible to say, but I have a legal responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to do what's in my client's best interest.
And let's be honest, it's not like you're wiping the floor with anyone who's trying to operate ethically and maneuver through the file. Fine. This is when we need these skills, these tools, because we know that there are agents out there that do not operate ethically and do not understand or are just not incompetent, but let's just say that they aren't as educated and maybe aren't at a place where they're
less educated.
Yes, mentorship doesn't happen for just everybody. So I would also say if you are a well-educated, very skilled negotiator, have a little bit of grace when you see somebody who's not. Because remember, these are also opportunities where we can bring people into our world. If we know that they're a great agent and they're trying to perform ethically, but maybe they're missing the mark on some cases, that's just that's an opportunity for you to come through and help the fellow agent. And I think, you know, we need to see that we need to be able to tell the difference when and the intention is very much has to do with my response. I'd say that.
Yes, I think that's a fair statement. I do think that's a fair statement. So yeah, and just so for those of you who are either watching live or watching the replay here, who are thinking like, I don't have leverageable stats. I'm a newer agent. I don't know what to say here. Okay. It is okay to own the fact that you are a newer agent, that you're getting started. Leverage your hunger. Right.
And just
so
leverage
be
your
comfortable
database.
with saying,
like you said, when you come with a list, everyone has a database that they can leverage.
yes,
even if your
everybody does.
database is supplemented by somebody else's database. That's totally fine.
Right.
Put a message out to a workplace or, your broker live, wherever everyone in your brokerage talks, whether it's a Facebook group or a workplace group or, however it's held, and put the message out to your own brokerage and just say, hey, I have some partner agents that have 4 buyers lined up ready to go. Use other agents' buyers. Like, it doesn't matter. You can come with
That's fine.
Yeah, you can do it.
Absolutely, you can do it. And what I was wanting to say, when you're talking about your negotiating power, be okay with saying, I want you to understand in terms of negotiation, our interests are 100% in alignment. My fee is structured as a percentage of the amount of money I earn for you. And I don't do this for fun. I do this to provide for my family. I absolutely will not fail to get you the best possible deal on this property, because doing that would mean failing myself and failing my children. And that is not something I will allow to happen. Is that the level of commitment that you're looking for in an agent? I mean, it's very difficult for someone to be like, oh, no, I'm looking for somebody with more experience after you've presented yourself that way. It's okay to let them know that you're newer. It's okay to let them know that this is all you've got. But what that means for them is they have 100% of you. When you present something with confidence, you're going to find that it's going to be received well. So don't go in feeling like you're not good enough. You're plenty. You're plenty. You're more than enough, and you're going to kill it. Confidence is key here when you deliver this message, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now that we're going back and forth, so sorry, y'all. You've signed the listing. You're ready to go. You're killing it. It's fantastic. Make sure that you price this home competitively. If you want to guard your sale to list price ratio, your days on market, like, I'm not saying price it obscenely low. Don't do that. The last thing your seller wants is to get 500 offers that they have to review, and that's awful. But do price it slightly below what you expect it to sell for. Do that so that you generate the perception of competition. And when you are having conversations with agents on the other line, like, oh, hey, this is priced pretty competitively, what are your sellers thinking in terms of what they hope to get? You can say with confidence, well, I've had this conversation a handful of times today. We're expecting multiple offers. My recommendation for you is to tell your client to write an offer that they are comfortable with walking away from this house with, because it's going to be competitive.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard thing to say, right? But it really inspires the best, highest paying buyer to write their best, highest paying offer.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to create that kind of competition for your seller, because that's who you have responsibility to. So even if you get only 2 or 3 offers, you get 2 or 3 highly competitive offers. And that's the best possible way to do it, in my opinion. Do you have any other advice on that, Amanda?
No, yeah, I think pricing is definitely providing reports, removing as many hesitations as possible, so a buyer just wants to write their highest and best. So you don't have to ask for it. That's really the best way.
I agree. So in my opinion, unless you're,
it's really easy to write, here's what will win. Here's what your offer,
mm-hmm.
here's the minimum we expect to see on this offer. My client needs to move. They need to find their next house. We expect to see the SPRP included with the offer. I mean, make it, why let them guess what they want? If you
upload offer instructions.
Yes, if you know your client will not accept an offer without some kind of term or
The
contingency,
SPRP, right? Yeah.
whatever, then write it in there. Like, why waste all this time? That's what gets me. Other than that, I totally agree.
And just for the sake of not speaking in acronyms, because I hate when people do that from other states because I don't know what it means. So your seller replacement property contingency. Yeah, write that in there. Have seller signed offer instructions, because I feel like that has a lot of power when a buyer's agent is like, oh, like the seller actually saw this, the seller approved this, this is what the seller is looking for. You can say, we're very hopeful that we're going to receive multiple offers.
Mm-hmm.
Our ideal offer will include the following terms: competitive list price, fast close, removal of contingencies, whatever it is that you're looking for. Seller occupancy time post-close, this much, whatever it is, write it out, let them know this is what we want. That will set a tone. Now, what you should not do, in my opinion, is say, we're going to be reviewing offers on this date, and then that date comes and goes, and you leave that date in the MLS.
Just edit your agent remarks. Like, especially if you know that your average days on market run like around 21 to 30 days, don't push it, because you look like you failed. That's it. You look like the house didn't sell. It didn't happen the way you said. And why? Why didn't anyone write an offer on it? It must be the price. So when we submit, it will be low. And that's now, if you know that if you know that it's going to be on market for a while, you can say, hey, you know, the seller's willing to give it 2 weekends on market before they consider any lowball offers.
Sure. Or any below asking officer. I wouldn't say lowball. Don't encourage lowball.
So when you're being professional, we would use chats to make sure. We're saying that's another thing too, is if you really aren't sure how to say it for a good agent remarks, have chat help you create it, send it to your broker, get your broker to be like, sure, that sounds great. And then there you go. Always send it to your broker.
And you
if you're creating verbiage that's a little bit out of the box, just make sure with your broker that that's good, just to cover your compliance file, and then you're good to go. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with this. And I love that you mentioned this already. But yeah, if you're going to be going on the market, unless you're in a caveat emptor state, because that's the only time that would be a little bit different. But get your inspections done up front. Disclose the exact condition of your property right up front, because you will never find a time when the buyer is going to be more generous than when they are writing their initial offer in which they fear they are in competition with another interested buyer. They're going to be more generous and more forgiving at that exact moment. So if you have them sign, I have received and reviewed this home inspection, and do have them sign it. Don't get it twisted. Have everything signed that you've provided. And this is the offer I'm making according to this disclosed condition. You've just completely protected your clients against in escrow negotiation, because I'm telling you right now, there's never been an buyer initiated in escrow negotiation that resulted in a higher net to the seller. That doesn't happen. You'll never get a buyer to be like, this inspection.
It is a little bit fun to get a request for repair and to call that agent and say, oh, did they not review the information provided? They wrote the offer
that they signed
this, right? And then they're like, oh, yeah. And I mean, on my last listing, I saved my client $5,000 by having inspections up front.
Mhm.
And I actually sometimes will say, if they're very resistant to getting inspections up front, I'll tell them, listen, it's $500. If we end up not utilizing this report at all, I'll credit you back at closing. We
There you
always
go.
use it. I've never credited inspection money. We always use it. So,
Yeah.
whatever. Say what you need to say to get them on board with the plan.
Yes. And now this is different. However, if you're in a caveat emptor state, throw that advice out the window. Totally different.
Yes.
But yes, if you're not in a caveat emptor state, always disclose, because it's just going to be better for your client in the long run. Also, don't waste time on the preliminary title report. Order that bad boy the moment you get your agreement signed. If there's going to be an issue with title, well, that's a California thing. I don't know if there's any other states.
Really?
So California agents, get your visual inspection disclosure done at the listing appointment or at the inspection appointment, the pre-list inspection appointment. Have that ready to go in the MLS and just have that signed with the offers. It makes sure.
I like to do mine at the media day appointment, because then you're like uploading everything into the MLS anyway, right at that time. Yes.
That's fair. I always liked to do mine behind the inspector. I had a really great inspector, and he was so cute. He would be like, did you write that down on your Avid? I'd be like, no, I did not. Thank you, Jason.
Buyer, yeah.
No, because he did my seller inspection.
Oh, your pre-list. That's right. Yeah.
Always. Yeah.
Some people will argue. I've actually heard people say, oh, you shouldn't be there during the inspection because then you have to include it on your Avid. And it's like,
well, I want it on my Avid.
If it's going to be on the inspection, I mean, listen, you're not trying to not be clear and transparent here. You're trying to not get sued and not get your broker sued. So it's like, yeah.
Fully disclose. Fully disclose. Exactly. Yeah. All right, guys. So yes, get your inspections done. Get your prelim done. Let's see here. Yes, if you're going to be staging your listing, arrange the staging, arrange cleaning. Even if you're not having a professional stage, consider like a staging styling consult. Have somebody come in and help them present their home in its best possible light as it stands, right? This room would flow a lot better if this chair was over there. And as much as I love all these family photos, what I'd like to do is swap them out for 3 generic pieces of art or whatever it is. You can do that as an agent. I prefer to have a third party, a neutral third party, come in and with the understanding that it's their job to change things about that home. And I think how you approach this is going to be really important. You have to be delicate, right? You're going to come across sellers who absolutely love their home. I'm one of these homeowners, by the way. If somebody came in and didn't like my home, I would be crushed because I love my home. And I think we have to appreciate that feeling. And you can say, I know you love your home and I love it too. This home is absolutely perfect for your family. What I want to do is present your home in such a way that it's going to be absolutely perfect for the next family. And the best way for us to do that is to present it in such a way that is as neutral as possible so that people can insert in their mind their own taste, their own memories, their own vision. When they come in, we want them to think of what it's going to feel like to have family game night at that kitchen table. And in order for that to happen, we need to give them the blank slate to picture it on. Mm-hmm. And, if you tell the story that way, you'll find that sellers are like, okay, that makes sense. What you don't want to do is go in and just say, this is really just loud and busy and cluttered. And, buyers are going to think your house is small because there's so much stuff in it. That is so offensive. Don't say it like that. And if you have to say something like that, that's the power of a staging consultant. Let them say it. So yes, do things like that. Obviously, transaction to close, leverage a really fantastic TC. If you are somebody who is of the opinion that a TC is not worth the money, I would challenge your thought process, because the amount of time that you are going to be spending managing the file, had you allocated that same time to prospecting for new business, would have changed your world exponentially. Your job is not to manage paperwork. Your job is to generate and manage clients. Two different things. You are the client-facing piece. Your TC can be the paperwork-facing piece. That's not to say that the paperwork doesn't matter to you. I've already said this. You should be reading every single document that you have your client sign. You should also not be the person that's chasing the missing initial or scheduling this or following up. Like, no, that's not your highest and best use of time. Your highest and best use of time is managing your client, managing your negotiation, and generating new business. That's how you're going to build a profitable business. Leverage a TC. I promise you it's worth it. As long as they're good. And Angie, you have a great point. Angie says, well, they've never had a good TC. That's probably true. And then post-close, right?
Tells me what to do.
I'm a big, huge fan. Oh yes, your TC should be the boss in the transaction world. Your TC should be like, Amanda, you didn't upload your Avid. Where is it? We need it.
Oh, that never happened.
Your TC should not be somebody. But your TC should not be saying, Amanda, what would you like me to do next? That's not a good TC.
No, don't bring my work back to
right. Like if you have to manage the TC, that's the wrong TC. Exactly. You should be able to say, okay, TC, this is my expectation. This is my task list. This is my standard operating procedure. You take it from here. And you don't come to me until there's a problem. But do be organized enough to have that happen. Don't count on them to build your standard operating procedures. That would also not be appropriate. But post-close, I'm a big believer, handwritten thank you notes, like with stamps on them, for your clients, for the agent on the other side, assuming that they were not a terrible person, but they're usually not. If somebody referred you that client, handwritten thank you note to the person that referred them to you, okay? And yes, to the other side, even if you had bumps in the transaction, like really, hey, I appreciate you coming together with me. I know there were some bumps in the road here. I'm grateful that we got to the finish line together, and I'd love an opportunity to work with you again in the future. Play nice in the sandbox. Like I remember when I get thank you notes from agents, because not a lot of agents do it.
Yeah.
And when I get multiple offers, when I get multiple offers on my next listing, I remember the agent that sent me a thank you note, and I can say, oh, I've worked with Amanda before. And honestly, even if it was a crap transaction, in my mind, I say, she's a great agent. There's something about it that just strengthens the relationship. And building relationships with productive agents in your market is to your client's benefit.
Oh, your reputation.
That should be part of your strategy. Yes. Maintaining a positive reputation should 100% be part of your client service strategy. You should be able to negotiate your way through closed doors that other people don't even know about using the relationships that you've built in your industry. And it starts with the little things. It starts with thank you notes. Be grateful. Acknowledge when people work hard. It matters. The little things matter. Make a point to request reviews, guys. 70% of people will trust an online review as much as they will trust a personal recommendation. You don't believe me? How many of you have made a purchase on Amazon just based on online reviews? Oh, now you believe me. So it's really, really important that we get people to leave us reviews. I really like review contests. So, consider that. Just you can do something like, hey, we are trying to collect as much honest feedback as possible regarding the services that we provide to our buyers and sellers. If you could take a moment to share your experiences with the internet at these 5 links, I will take a moment to add your name into this drawing for every single review that you leave. So if you leave me 5 reviews on these 5 different links, you're going to have 5 entries. And then if your spouse leaves me 5 reviews on these 5 links, you're going to have 10 entries. Mm-hmm. And hey, your 16-year-old's a pretty good writer, right? Ha ha ha, right? Like, you get the idea. And what's going to happen with these entries is that they're going to live in this bowl that I'm going to draw a single name from every single month. And they are going to stay in this bowl until I pull your entry out, until you win something. That's a fun message. So, and Amanda, I think you probably remember this, but the first time we did this contest, we had like 1 entry. And so we went on camera and we had like this big bingo ball thing and we were spinning it. We're like, I wonder who's gonna win. And we pulled it out. I'm like, oh, Thomas, congratulations.
I mean, you got to start. What's also
It's
a good
fine.
thing with your people, if they're going to leave you a review, you could keep a list of maybe, let's say, your top 2 or 3 past clients that are just your ambassadors and love to talk about you. Include those people with your listing presentation and just tell them, hey, if you want to call some of my past clients directly, here's a list of some of my people that have loved to work with me. And just give them your name and number and tell these people, hey, from time to time, somebody might be giving you a call. And I'd love if you were just honest with them. They would feel like,
so.
This
is a list of my professional references.
Yeah. Just like you would if you were.
I love that.
Applying for a job.
Applying for a job, because that's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So after the thank you notes, after the review, make sure that you add your clients to an appropriate nurture plan. If you don't have one in place, check out the Lazy River. It's in our resource library, but you should be nurturing that relationship on purpose for the rest of time. Don't forget that piece.
Because when they die,
with that, I've gone a little bit over time. Oh, that's a thing. I've helped generations. We've helped parents and kids. And it can happen without a whole lot of effort. It's about providing consistently exceptional service when it's not expected. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, that's the thing that people remember. That is what's going to make you their agent for life. It's good. It's good to do a great job in the transaction, but let's be honest, that is expected. When you go above and beyond and you continue to be a resource and you continue to provide value and information and attention to detail and care above and beyond and well after the close of the sale, that's when you become the agent for life. That's the moment right there. So don't sleep on that, in my opinion. All right, guys, I've gone just a hair over time. So sorry about that, but this was a big conversation today. I really appreciate those of you who hung in there, and anybody who's watching this replay, thanks for watching on the replay. Feel free to send us questions and have a fabulous and productive weekend, guys. Bye.
Bye.